Well, thank you everyone for joining us. I am really excited to talk to the team from Expo. Some really interesting things coming out, and I thought it'd be a great conversation, and some tools and some upcoming events that you'd be part of. Thank you so much for joining us, Dan, head of marketing for Expo, and John, head of product. Really appreciate you coming today, John.
Yep.
So for product, I have used Expo many times. I used it at Stripe for payments. I have used Expo Go. I have used EAS. For folks listening that are not familiar with Expo at all, like how would you explain to another dev what Expo is, what are and why they should care about it?
Sure. Exo is the best way to make mobile apps. And if you know React and have that skill set, it's very easy to make an iOS and an Android app
Mhm.
with Expo. We have 100 different libraries that you can use. We've got services that will take your app and build it and get it on the stores. So we're really just trying to build an ecosystem that lets you go from React developer to app store. It's like exactly what I did too as a developer.
That was my experience going from
Yeah.
React and very overwhelming to it can be very overwhelming, I feel, to go from React to React Native. And so how practically would that help someone make that transition?
So with the tools that we offer, I mean, like with web development, you just see the preview of your website right on your computer. We do the exact same thing with mobile development where you can see the preview right on your phone
Mhm.
or right in a simulator. I'm sure you've done this before.
Yes.
And we try to make that as easy as possible to get started.
It is like magical when you get the first sample up and running and you also can scan the QR, the code and have it loading on your phone, like fully rendered. I feel like that is just like
Yeah, and every time you make a change, you see it instantly on your
it's
phone.
real time. Yeah, like you all set the standard for live refresh.
Nice.
So Dan, right? I think Expo is a company name. It's
Mhm.
also the name, the prefix of a lot of the products. How can devs make sense about Expo as a company
Sure.
and also the different product offerings you have?
I think we want to be the go-to tool for you have an idea for an app.
Mhm.
And we just want there to be like very few limitations for getting started and making that app feel real, like getting it from 0 to 1 and then getting it all the way to the app store.
Right.
Like we're working on making that as beautiful and seamless an experience as possible. So we hope that that's the experience developers are having with Expo and how they think of us.
Okay. And then are they where's conversations is there like a Discord? Is it happening in GitHub discussions and PRs? Like where is kind of the back and forth?
Many places.
Okay.
Every day on Twitter, I see these apps getting built, and I had no idea they were Expo apps. And they'll at Expo, and then I write them a DM. I'm like, "Hey, this is so cool. This looks really great.
Totally.
Let's tell your story. Like,
I
let's
love
work.
that.
Let's get into a Notion doc. Let's figure out like how you built this. Let's put a blog together and like help tell the world about what you built." So that I see that in Discord. We have a really active
The
Discord.
Expo Discord. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then Twitter's been great for just like having these like one-to-one dialogues with developers. Um, Blue Sky is good. LinkedIn's good.
I guess related to that, one thing I appreciated was a couple weeks ago at React Universe, I interviewed Danny Williams, who's the maintainer of React Native Storybook, and he's kind of been working on this because he needed it, and then it blew up, and now he's really supporting the community at scale. And I noticed recently y'all featured him. He actually was a guest author on your blog. I think he posted recently.
Yeah. Danny and I worked on that blog together for a little too long. We were trying to get it published, and then the SDK 54 hit, and there's like weeks of
Of
content
course,
to roll out.
updates.
But yeah, that's a good example. That's like exactly the kind of like collaborative relationship that we want to have with developers.
It's interesting. I always find Expo so fascinating because you hold such a massive space in the React Native community, but you're also a team of like 30, maybe 50 if we're talking contractors too. What's that balance between influence and what you're putting out there and folks assuming the best or assuming the worst of Expo?
I mean, over half the company works on our open source software,
Yes, I
and
noticed that. Yep.
we care deeply that that maintains like a focus for us.
It's like a show don't tell. Actions speak louder than words, I feel like, in this situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, what you might know is developers are pretty vocal when
Oh,
things don't go
I've
right.
heard this.
Yeah.
Feedback is a gift, but you might regret the volume.
So in terms of
Yes.
working with like people from the community, yeah, we hear from them all the time, and I think the best thing is like we have to keep on listening and keep on improving our existing products.
Yep.
That's what I was gonna say. It's like they aren't competing incentives. Like our only job is to listen and then prioritize and keep building what our customers, what our open source users need. So it's not really a hard balance to strike. It's like, let's just be a company that listens, and that comes pretty naturally to everyone.
I would imagine a lot of those products came about from developer need. Talk a little bit about how the different products and suite of tools come about.
It's actually like one of the reasons why like I love working at Expo so much is
Yeah.
because like we'll hear one specific problem from like one person.
Mhm.
They're like, I need to use this library in my app. And we're like, cool, maybe we should add it to Expo Go and everything.
Yeah.
And then you hear that a bunch of times with people with just like very little different things. And then the problem becomes, how do we like do all of these in a generalized and flexible way? And like one example of that is we introduced something called continuous native generation or
Nice.
CNG,
Okay.
and it just allows you to use any code. So it's a more flexible primitive that you can use to get like any native code into your app. It makes it a lot easier and predictable.
Oh yeah.
Um, so that like kind of problem, I think, really interests a lot of us on the
Yeah.
team. Like, how do we create these abstractions that like are right? And I feel like if you really care about abstractions, like maybe developer tooling is something that you should look into.
Lead Android dev or React dev trying to learn, how do you approach those two differently when they try to like onboard and ramp up for Expo?
That's a good question. And
So
I
maybe I
feel
should say like a native
different.
developer
Yeah.
versus a web developer.
Yeah.
Different path, but the end goal is they want to get up and running.
Well, let's talk about it, because I do think it's like maybe we have different opinions on this, maybe. But for React developers, the story is like empowerment, right? Like we're just additive. We're just giving you also the mobile powers, right?
Mhm.
With with Android developers or someone who specializes in writing Kotlin, it's been a harder cultural sell, I feel like. And what we want people to understand is like you can drop down to native code in Expo, and like the Kotlin developers, the Swift developers, like they're the best
They have a head
React
start.
native developers,
Right.
because they can make stuff feel super, super native to whatever platform they specialize in. Does that feel accurate? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
What's more, it's not like all or nothing. Like
No, zero sum game.
surface area means you just can use parts of it that you like and that like
Yeah.
benefit you in whatever situation you have.
So if I'm using Expo's tools or Expo Go, I can also build my app with what turbo modules, nitro modules, like what native support do you have when it comes to using Expo in your app?
So yeah, you can build like your Android or
Either. So like your point of like a native developer actually has a upper hand
yeah.
because they're already comfortable with the native primitives.
Mhm.
So they're like, you tell them you can bring Kotlin or Swift or C or Rust into this. How would they be doing that if they also want to get started with Expo?
So they can do that by writing like a config plugin,
Okay.
which is you can write your own native code and then exposes it to the JavaScript side.
Yeah.
Then all of your friends who know React or know web development will be able to use those things that you've written. So you can write the deep parts and have other people write the other parts of the app that maybe you're not as adept at writing or don't want to.
I know a practical use case is my last job years ago at Stripe. We had tons of developers in the community that were trying to do mobile payments, and we were seeing all these community projects popping up where they were essentially shoving like a Stripe checkout, a Stripe payment flow in a web view, like in a mobile, and then that kind of worked. Obviously, we didn't love it, but that kind of worked until two-factor payments came up, biometric authentication was a requirement, and we launched that SDK with Expo support because you got to drop in a native to do the face recognition or thumbprint. And so, what are some other use cases where native is really essential for an app's functionality?
Yeah, well, one that I've heard a lot today is like Bluetooth functionality.
Yes.
Someone was working on like drawing property lines for like the contractors that
Okay.
they run on, and so they have to have like up to like a centimeter of depth of like the property lines here or there,
Oh,
and so
yeah.
they made an app with Bluetooth that is able to like connect with like a tool that they use to like show them exactly where
Wow.
the line will be. So like Bluetooth is one, Maps is another big one, audio visual stuff, videos. If you want that picture-in-picture thing, we can do the peek and pop
People don't
stuff.
realize
They're
how
just like
hard picture-in-picture is. It is really hard.
and when you drag the app closed, like you want the video to still play, so you
Yes.
can have it over another app.
Yes.
It's not really something a web view can do for you.
Cannot. Yes, exactly. Um, okay, so related to that, one of the reasons I really want to chat with you both today is it caught my attention that yesterday, as of this recording, October 6th, y'all announced the Expo Dev Awards. I am really passionate about anything related to hackathons or building in public, learn by teaching, and so maybe Dan, let's start with you.
Sure.
What's going on what is the Expo Dev Awards?
Yeah.
Why should any devs care about it? What's going on?
First of all, this is John's idea.
Oh, all right,
And
John.
John has been sitting on this idea for a few years, and we brought it up a couple times, right? And everybody wanted to do it, and we just didn't make time for it.
Yeah.
And then in the last 6 or probably 8 months, something has tipped on social media is where I see it, where every day there are beautiful Expo apps being shared on Twitter, and I'm looking
People
at
proud
those
of what they're
UIs.
building, want to show it off. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're small developers or they're very popular developers from all over the world. And it became sort of like this imperative, like people are building beautiful apps with Expo. It's time to give them a stage. It's time to celebrate them and start showing the world like what's possible
Yeah.
with Expo, because it's amazing. Like what people are building is incredible.
I love that. So, all right. So, I mean, I always appreciate when a lead really wants to push what's possible. Yeah. What was kind of some of the origin on your side?
So I just figured that like whenever I go to conferences,
Yeah.
people are always coming up to me and they're like, "Hey, look what I've built," and it's so cool.
This is the equivalent of like, here's my mixtape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I wrote all the songs on the mixtape.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And there's no place to celebrate that or acknowledge like
Yeah.
the effort and like the passion that people are putting into their
Totally.
projects. So we should create a space for that. And I think we're maybe the only people in the community, at least right now, that are able to do that effectively. So it's like, yeah, I think we should.
Well, I also appreciate that Expo. I mean, yes, you want iOS and Android as a top focus for you. Obviously, for Fire TVs in our area, a lot of our developers use, whether it's Android or for Vega OS, they use Expo tools to publish to TVs. And so I appreciate that Expo is platform vendor agnostic. Like it seems like for the Expo Dev Awards, you're pretty flexible on what people are submitting to the Expo Dev Awards. And what does that practically look like for a mobile dev or a web dev? Yeah, how does one participate in the Expo Dev Awards?
I think it's pretty simple. Like if you go to expo.dev/awards,
Okay.
there's a simple submission process. And what we're looking for in there is links to the app in the App Store, and then a
So it
description.
needs to be live or test.
Needs to be live. It needs to be in production.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. No test flight.
Okay.
Not this year. We'll see how.
So it needs to pass the app submission bar. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there's a section for describing the app.
Yeah.
And it's totally up to the discretion of the creator. And like I've been reading a lot of them today. And some people go into like incredible detail on the architecture of the app, the motivation for the app,
Yeah.
and what they think is unique about it. And that's really what we're looking
They're
for.
proud of their work.
And like we're going to get a lot of submissions. It is helpful to see like they want us to go look at their haptics, or they want us to go look at a unique thing they did with the UI and appreciate the time they put into it. So we're looking for like that craft, that thoughtfulness, that creativity in sort of the app
Okay.
itself.
Okay, so why would a dev want to do this? Like, obviously they want to show off what they're building. Is there prizes? What do they get out of
It's
this?
so funny. We didn't talk about this at all. I think the prize is really exciting. So we are making custom keyboards, custom mechanical keyboards.
Wait, this is amazing. What?
So we're partnering with Norbauer. Do you know them?
Yeah.
Okay. So Norbauer, mechanical keyboard
Clicking
builder
keyboards.
in
Yes.
LA.
Yeah.
He builds these fantastic keyboards.
Yeah.
So we're collaborating with him to do like an Expo custom keyboard.
That's amazing.
Super limited. There will be 5 of them in the world. And
Yeah.
so
There's
there's
5 categories.
for the 5
Yeah.
categories.
Okay, so remind me again, what are the 5 categories?
Let's see if I can remember. So it's app of the year.
Yeah.
And then there's the most creative app, the most innovative app, and then there's built for scale. So like an app that demonstrates like the scale that's possible. And then community's choice.
Oh, like a People's Choice Award.
There you go. Yeah.
And so I would assume I know when I participate in online hackathons or build-a-thons now, I love to get some inspiration. And so can they see like how can they get an idea for what to build or what to submit?
We are going to start socializing a lot of the apps that are getting submitted.
Yeah.
And we'll adjust the site to start featuring apps that have been submitted so people can get a feel for what's out there. That's the hope, is that people can see like, okay, it's not just big famous developers submitting apps. It's also just like any developer anywhere in the world making something beautiful that they're proud of.
Is it okay if the app, I guess where I was going in my head is this might be a good excuse. I know for me, I love excuses to add a new feature to my app. So will you allow apps that have already been published, that are already live, or do they have to be like a totally net new app?
That's a good question. Like, I didn't describe that very well, I don't think, on the site, but it's any app. It just needs to be a live app. It doesn't have
Trying to
to be
celebrate awesome apps that are
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
built and you want other people to be able to try them out.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. So how can folks plug into product related stuff or community related stuff?
Yeah. So for community stuff, every year we co-organize App.js, which
Oh,
is in
of course,
contact.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like Software Mansion.
So software
Right, it's very
Expo.
Expo focused. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So we do that with them. And then next year we're doing Chain React with Infinite
Yeah,
React.
yeah. I
So it'll
went
be
a year. I'm
or-
so sad it didn't happen this year. I love that event.
So are we. That's why
Yeah, it's
we're gonna
really
work
fun.
with them now and
Yeah.
bring it back. And we love both of those teams are fantastic. So
Well,
excited.
those events are great. So I had two colleagues that gave a talk at App.js, and what I love about that event and Chain React is it's a majority of open source maintainers, and the details matter. Like it is really getting into folks sharing the troubles they're having and like actually sharing code with each other. So both those events are awesome. Okay, does Expo, like tactically, does Expo have like a Discord? Mostly just on like how can folks? Where's the conversations happening?
So yeah, we have a community of 50,000 plus developers on Discord at
There you go.
chat.expo.dev,
Chat, say the URL again.
chat.expo.dev.
Yeah, great. Okay.
And you can go there, sign up for free.
Okay.
And we've got channels for all kinds of things. If you're building, submitting, whatever, come and ask your questions. Maybe someone will help you if you have a question.
Yeah.
We're also in there pretty often helping people. So yeah.
One thing there, I don't know how close either of you two are to it, but there's an open source project your team has been maintaining for a long time, which is React Native directory. And so one struggle we've had in the Amazon world is a lot of devs come to us saying, "Hey, what are the libraries that actually work with Fire OS, or like what compatibility do you have?" And we don't have a source of truth. And so it's really been nice is on React Native directory, I can look up and see what libraries work with React Native for Mac, React Native for Windows, for Skia, for Expo Go. And that's an example of something that really solves like no one platform vendor is going to do that. And that is something that like, I don't know how much y'all use that, but that really helps us a ton is when people are like, okay, I want to port my app from web to Fire TV. How can I know what libraries work? Like it's been great for us to be able to point to that.
Yeah.
That's Expo Maintain, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
I never thought about that. Like, what else would you like us to do that would make it easier for you?
Well, related to okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you asked for it. I guess where I started going with full workflows is what we're doing on our side is every time a new library gets added to React Native directory, we're setting up an internal workflow that's testing every single library to see does it function and work with Fire or with Android with Fire OS for us. And a lot of times what we're trying to go the next step above, which React does this, I believe, is we're actually wanting to integrate the library on one of our sample Hello World apps in screenshot and do some like quick checking visually, does it work? And then if we're also getting errors, we want to dive in. So there's a lot of like the worst thing is when we tell devs try this library out and maybe it worked with an older version of React Native, but then something changed recently. Like it's not a one and done. Yes, this always works. And now we just launched Vega OS, which is Linux based, but it's not Android. Y'all have the source of truth, and the better you can either do checks for the major platforms or we can hook into that. I'd be super interested because I rely on that site often to see when a library gets published into the React Native directory. I take that as a signal of whoever submitted it is dead serious about it. They put in the work to actually submit it there, and then it's really on us to test. And so, yeah, anything around there, I think is, yeah, it's like such a blessing y'all maintain that. So something around workflows that could be interesting. Yeah.
Okay. I had no idea who was looking at that.
Yeah.
That's great. That's good to know.
Well,
I'm so glad you got so much use out
well,
of it.
you imagine if you're a major, like
Yeah,
say
yeah.
you're one of the top streaming sports apps in the world,
Yeah.
and you're already on web and you're maybe on Android and iOS, you heard maybe Amazon supports React Native for our devices. The first thing you're going to ask as a lead dev is, okay, but which of our 10 or 20 third-party libraries work? We don't want to maintain something separate from the community. And so that's been really helpful. But where I'm at now is every time a new version of React Native comes out, we need to do the work to test and update the
Verify
site.
those.
Okay, we've verified, we've seen it, it's running functionally on all the way up to version when 1.0 comes out and beyond.
Yeah. It sounds like you're doing a lot of the work that we do, because we do all of that with our SDK, just not for Fire OS.
Oh, interesting. So okay, so
We
when
test
you do
tons of libraries.
when you do so talk to me a little bit about that. When you do new versions of your SDKs, what are you doing for your own internal CI/CD pipelines for Expo?
I actually don't know the CI/CD pipelines, but I do know we do manual process. If we have an app, has all kinds of libraries in it,
Yeah,
and then we go in and check them all and make sure they work.
That's
And
great.
then we have to pin certain versions with Expo Doctor to make sure that
right.
when you install Expo Install, it works for the most part.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like we should expand this for.
Yeah. Well, at least for I think for Android, Vega's a little different, but yeah, we've ported. We just launched Vega OS, and I think we ported like 30 or 40 Expo libraries, and we posted them because I think for most React Native devs, they need to. There's just like must-haves, and a lot of them are the ones that you or Software Mansion or CallStack maintain. Okay, so to wrap this up, for anyone watching, Expo Dev Awards is open from October 6th till when does submissions close?
October 31st.
October. So the end of October. So they got a month of October to get it out.
Yep.
You're looking for published apps, mobile apps.
That's right.
Okay. That are in a store.
Yep.
And then you published TV apps if it's Google Play or App Store, you'll probably accept as well, as long as it's published through an app store.
That's right.
And then for the product, you would love feedback on workflows. And then folks should really check out, say the URL for the Discord again.
It's chat.expo.dev.
Okay, and then your GitHub account for most of your libraries are what?
github.com/expo/expo.
This is what you. I'm so glad you didn't have to blink. You knew this. Well, Dan, Jon, thank you so much for joining, and I'm really excited, and I appreciate all that you build and support for the community.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right,
Appreciate it.
thanks, y'all.